welcome back to the Unlock a Life You Love podcast. My name is Dr. Tim Teel, and we have a super special guest on our program today, Denene Giudetti. She is with the naturalalchemy.com. Denene, sorry. Welcome. Tell us a
Thank you,
little bit
Dr.
about
T.
you.
Thank you. It is a pleasure to be here with you. I'm so happy that we got to connect on Healerverse. So yes, I do have my own company, Natural Alchemy, and I am a healer and a coach. I am certified in meditation and Reiki. I am a Healerverse healer, and I'm also a healer and a coach for Inner Bloom. It's a brand new academy for women that focuses on health and well-being. We just launched in April. We have about 4,500 members, and we are climbing. And yeah, I'm really excited to be here with you today and to dive into all of the things.
We've got a lot to talk about. So what I want to do is just kind of start out of the space that you and I have decided to, the sandbox that we're playing in, has been kind of sidelined and a little bit weird for a long time. However, it is rapidly becoming something that a lot of people are talking about, and that is the holistic healer, the energetic healer space. Tell me, how did you get involved in energetic healing and the healing modalities that you use?
Absolutely. So for me, as a child, I knew I was different, and I was really born with my intuitive and psychic abilities online. Now, I think a lot of people get confused with psychic abilities. There's a lot of misinformation out there. How I perceive it is that it's just higher levels of sensory perception. So my higher sensory, perception, those abilities were really online and active since I was a child, but I didn't fully understand it. I didn't have support around that. So it was really difficult growing up. And as I got older, as we grow and we evolve, our gifts grow and evolve as well. So they were strengthening. And I really needed support in learning how to manage that. And where it really all came to a head for me, and when I really had to really stop and take a look at what was happening in my life and make some changes, was in my late 20s. So at the time, I was in grad school and I was going for my master's in speech language pathology, and I was in a rigorous program. It brought on a lot of stress. I mean, I was working full days, going to class at night. I also did internships in hospitals. So it was a lot of rounds. It was on my feet. It was a lot going on. Add that with life stress and then these gifts and abilities coming online that I didn't know how to manage. And I really hit a point where everything just kind of imploded. And I ended up in a doctor's office because I was sick. I was exhausted. I was sick. I had no energy. I couldn't move. And unfortunately, I had an experience where the medical field let me down, but it ended up being a catalyzing experience for reclaiming my power. So I had doctors telling me I was crazy. I was making up these symptoms. There was nothing wrong with me. And then towards the end of that journey, I did receive a diagnosis of fibromyalgia. And that was, again, around 28 years old, super young. And I remember the doctor telling me, you're going to feel this way for the rest of your life, because I was having widespread pain throughout my body, all these debilitating symptoms that were quite miserable. Yet I kind of presented looking as, a healthy young woman. And he told me again, I would have this for the rest of my life. I'd have to be on medication. And I remember sitting there and hearing that. And the first thought in my head was, absolutely not. I don't subscribe to that. Absolutely not. And from there, it really kickstarted a whole healing journey. I did all this research on my own, diving into the nervous system, diving into natural healing, working with meditation, working with Reiki, diet as well, all things that I can do that I could focus on myself. But it also catapulted me into reaching out to other healers to learn how to hone and manage my gifts.
So, what did you learn about what you were experiencing?
So for me, my my gifts were really bombarding me energetically. So I had to learn how to manage that within my field. So what could I do, and really focusing on a mind, body, spirit connection, because I was taking on too much and I did not know how to regulate it at all, like at all. So it was running me into the ground. So I really needed to learn how to manage it, what I can do to support myself in certain situations, to really provide a good foundation. That's why I think energy management is so important, and it's really needed, and it's not discussed enough, especially in the medical field. Like, we could be bridging these gaps and making these connections. Western medicine is great in many aspects, but then it's also missing the mark in many aspects.
Yeah, well, you said my word. It's called the gap. And
Mhm.
no, I no repeatedly through this podcast, through the through the things that I write on my blog, through the things that we teach, is teaching people where there is this gap between the world that we can weigh and that we can measure, and the world of thoughts, feelings, emotions, and spirit that can't be weighed and can't be measured. I mean, what's the volume of a thought? How
Mm.
much does love weigh? I had an East Texas cowboy tell me that he knew the answer to that question. He leaned forward, he patted his wife on the knee and said, 185 pounds just this morning. He limped for a week after that. But the point is that there is what you're learning, what everybody that we bring on this podcast has the same message over and over and over again, is that there is a non-physical part of who we are that is incredibly important, that it is incredibly powerful, that it has a fantastic impact on our physical bodies, on our experience of life, and that there are things that we can do to manage it, to affect it. If we recognize it, understand it, then we can start to manipulate it. Western medicine just kind of has this thing: if we can't weigh it and we can't measure it, it doesn't really exist. You're crazy. Obviously, you have a diagnosis of fibromyalgia and you need pharmaceuticals for the remainder of your life. 100% don't agree with that. And there is a growing body of people out there, and you're obviously a well-educated, well-spoken, professional lady who came to this to the same conclusion that so many of us have, is that we're missing a significant piece of information here, and we're simply not recognizing that there is a non-physical part of us that is incredibly powerful. So, what specific steps did you take to turn your life around?
So I really started with getting to the root of what I could do to manage the stress. That seemed like that was really the number one. And if I could get that under control and work on that, I can branch out into other areas. And I also was really able to recognize that it wasn't just isolated to one area. So let's say not just working with the body, not just working with the mind, or not just working at the level of spirit. It needed to be an integrative approach. So that's really where I started to focus. But nervous system regulation was really one of the main ones. So what I could do to support myself in that way. And, the powerful thing that I got to learn was that we're also like so deeply unique. While there are methods and modalities that can work, you can also find different ways to tweak it and make it work for you. So, for example, with meditation, yeah, I can sit down and do the whole stillness and quieting the mind, and that was super beneficial. But because my nervous system was so revved up and stuck in fight or flight for so long, it was difficult. So I responded better to more active forms of meditation. And I have a practice that I have developed that I call walking alchemy. That is something I do to this day that has served me extremely well. So it's really getting to really learn yourself and what you need, right? You can get this information. You can try different things, like explore, play with it, try new things, see what you resonate with, see what you respond to, and take it from there and keep going and exactly find what you need to support yourself. So that was a big one for me. So, yes, taking in the knowledge of information around me, but finding what worked for me the
Right.
best, really.
That no, you're saying so many things I no, that I want to no, that I want to address and talk about, because no, because you're exactly right on so many levels. There are many different modalities in energy psychology, any energy medicine, energy whatever you want to call what it is, that's an energy healing. Um, for me, the tool that I found to be incredibly powerful and very fast was emotional freedom technique tapping. That was
Mm.
my first introduction to energy medicine. I thought, what in the world is this? Because it worked, and it worked fast. And no, and meditation is great for for some people, but you're exactly right. If you're revved so hot that you can't sit still, it is impossible, and people turn around and just give up on it. My no, my advice to anybody who's listening to this podcast is don't give up on it, because there are many modalities that will work for somebody, and you need to just try different tools. I'm a huge fan of EFT just because I had such a powerful response to it. Reiki is another one. Meditation is another. Sound healing is another. No,
Yes.
there are just many different modalities here. And no, and you said something else that was incredibly important, that that is my point of that I try and make over and over and over again, is that we are unique human beings. We are not machines. And one of the greatest messages that came out of my time in medicine is that we really have a very mechanistic approach to human beings, and human beings are not machines. We are biological machines that that have tremendous heterogeneity. We are all 100% unique and different, because if I took my liver and put it into your body and your liver into mine, we both die. Okay, because our immune systems recognize that this isn't me, this belongs to her, and that's where I go. And so my body's going to attack your liver, and your body's going to attack my liver. We are snowflakes. We are
Mm,
100% unique. We have a 100% unique
love
DNA
that.
profile. We have an immune system that is absolutely unique. And so, what works for one person doesn't work for everybody else. And yet, that's exactly how we treat people in medicine. We give them these racemic mixes of chemicals that are chemically identical, and we get a million different responses because we're treating heterogeneic heterogeneous biological machines that that don't respond the same way to everything. So,
Yeah.
so talk to me about what it is that you do now. So, your journey started out as an overworked professional speech language pathologist. By the way, some of my favorite people on the planet. Old ENT guy talking to you. I love what you do, and it's I had tremendous partnerships with speech language pathologists. One of the reasons that I wanted to talk to you, because your message and who you are resonates with me significantly. So, you do that still? Are you still a speech language pathologist?
I do. So when I did go down my path of starting Natural Alchemy and working with clients on energy management and the mind, body, spirit integration, feminine embodiment, because I do work with a lot of women, men too, but primarily women, I really started to miss my kids, my students, because I was working in the public school systems, but I left that for many reasons. And so I was able to actually get back into it. So I do work with kids still, the little guys, they're 3 to 5 years old. So it's so fun. I honestly pinch myself sometimes because we really get to play. It's play-based therapy and it's so much fun and they're so cute and they light up and it's just a joy to work with them. It warms my heart. So I'm happy that I get to have the best of both worlds, really. It's through teletherapy. I'm licensed in 4 states, so New Jersey, Maine, Virginia, and Nevada. And I can work from anywhere. So I really have my kids that I get to work with, and then my adults, and again, really having the best of both worlds.
Fantastic. So, talk to me about your natural alchemy business. I am fascinated to hear about this.
Yeah, so it's been a beautiful journey that also lights me up, and I'm so excited with the work that I do. So I work one-on-one with clients, or I do have a group coaching membership that people can join. And we really work again on energy management. So really teaching people how you can do this for yourself because you don't need these outside sources. Why outsource when you can insource? So we work on insourcing and how people can really develop a relationship with their practices intuitively. I get so many clients that come to me and they get stuck with what I call the aesthetic of the healing journey. They think it should look a certain way or be a certain way. And they have this like laundry list of items that they want to, get into my meditation, my affirmations, my breath work. It's like check, check, check every day. But that checklist becomes a chore list and it gets chucked out the window. And there's no longevity or sustainability throughout these practices for them. So I teach them how to tap in and be more intuitive with it and how to weave it in their lifestyle so they can maintain the journey and it can develop and follow its unique path because it's going to grow and evolve as we do. It should change. For example, I have a mom that I've been working with, and she was really beating herself up for not engaging in the energy management practices that she used to do when she was younger before she had kids. And so, we talked about really changing the narratives around that. And, it should look different. You're a mom now. And it, like, let's say you only get 3 minutes to maybe do a meditation or a breath work. Well, then you celebrate those 3 minutes that you get, and don't sacrifice intention for productivity. People will do that as well. Again, with the checklist, are you truly intentional? Are you bringing your attention and intention to these practices? Or are you just checking it off? So we dive into a lot of that. And we also dive into working at the level of the mind and the subconscious, reprogramming that way, and also how we can utilize our emotions in that sense as well. Because we can change everything within the physical body if we
No
start
way.
flooding it with a new chemical experience within the body that we can experience through emotions.
So you're saying we all have an internal, unconscious emotional program? Dare you say these things out loud, you intelligent human being? One
I
of
knew
the
you'd like that one.
oh, yeah, it's sister, I'm all over it. I love what you're talking about because we've been on other calls where I actually made the comment that we don't need to be ashamed of or feel silly about some of the conversations that we have in energy healing. That energy healing and the energy community is probably the most real thing that we're going to deal with in our life. The energy that is us cannot be created and it cannot be destroyed. Okay, if we buy that physical that physics principle, but we know that these bodies are going to die. We know that these bodies are only temporary, so they're not really real. Okay,
Mm,
the experience that we're having of life energetically is real and is permanent and is everlasting and does go on. It simply changes form. Energy is not created or destroyed. It simply changes form. And if we accept the fact that that all we can see and all we can measure and all we can weigh is all that is real, we've lived a life that is a lie. And
mm,
the most powerful part of us can't be seen and it can't be measured, but it can by God be felt.
mm,
And it's those feelings that that take us to the doctor, that take us to different places, that cause us to want to get married and have children, that cause us to continue to get out of bed and go see the smiling faces that you want to go work with every day. It's that energy that is us, that is the most powerful part of us, and yet we have ignored it for years, and we feel goofy whenever we sit down and talk about it and recognize them. But what a crazy world we live in, seriously.
right?
Einstein recognized this years ago. He said, no, he said, the rational mind is a faithful servant, but the
Mm,
intuitive mind, I would say the creative mind, is a sacred gift. And we've created an entire society that honors the servant and ignores the gift. And it is not to our credit, and so it is to your credit for recognizing the non-physical parts of who we are and the emotional program that we all have. So
mm,
let's probe that for just a second,
mm.
talk to me about what you understand about our unconscious emotional program and where it really trips us up, if you feel comfortable talking about it.
Yeah, when we have parts of that we ignore, or let's say something that is programmed within us due to trauma or something that happened in childhood, right? Like that runs in the background of our human operating system. And we are making decisions. It's almost acting like the puppeteer pulling the strings. And we're making decisions based on that without even realizing it. So, one of the big things I even started doing with myself when I started, okay, my healing journey and working on some of these things, I started going back into those points in childhood because I'm like, okay, I'm going to access it. I'm going to retrieve this information. I'm going to translate it so I can make sense of it consciously. And I'm going to rewrite it. I'm going to give my body a different experience. So I start running a new program. And so I started doing that. And there's many different ways that you can do that. I can share one way that I started doing that. I actually
Please
pulled
do.
out a photograph of myself from a specific age. And I remember looking at the photograph and thinking of the experiences I had at that time and what I must have been feeling in that moment. And I started to reparent myself in that moment and really speaking to myself and saying, it's okay, and changing the emotional experience. And I began to flood my system with acceptance and with love and really rewriting that program. And it brought so much peace and so much freedom from that. Like it was no longer a chain. I was able to break the chain to that old trauma that was really holding me back, that I didn't realize how much it was impacting me in the now, in the present moment.
And how'd you feel after you did that?
Incredible.
So,
It was freeing. That's a word that just keeps coming through. It was absolutely freeing.
so what you're saying is you used your imagination
Mm,
to go back and have a conversation with yourself at the age of 4, 5, 6, 8, 10, whatever, whatever that number
yeah.
was. I won't even ask you to reveal that. It doesn't matter. But you're using your imagination, that sacred gift of going back and having a conversation and resolving some emotional dysfunction, if you want to call it that, and rewriting that program the same way it was written at the same time that it was written in the first place. Is that a fair assessment?
Yes. And really
Exactly.
what comes to mind is like an image that I got just as you were saying that, was basically it was like being in a cage and realizing I had the key all along to unlock that cage and free myself.
Yes, exactly. Now you understand why I named my website The Doc of Unlock and Unlock a Life
Yeah.
You Love. We are not broken. Okay.
Mm,
We are not messed up. What we are is subject to a program, and that no, that program uses negative emotions to to help us to survive, to fight, hide, run away, or scream for help for anything that is threatening or that we believe is threatening our survival. And it's there to serve us. Okay. It's there to keep us alive until we have the opportunity to do what? Wake up to the
mhm.
fact that we actually control the program. We have the ability to control that program. And she just told you the whole recipe for doing that. She just did. My gosh, that's $1 million worth of counseling right there, guys. $1 million, and we just gave it to you for free. Thank you, Denene. We could stop right there and say we just changed the world, right? I wish it was that easy. You think it's that easy?
You know what's a powerful piece? The more, like every day, and the more I do this work, the more I see people waking up to it, and the
Right.
more of us are coming together.
Exactly. Yeah, we were just on a we were just on a call before we got onto this one, kind of one call after another, and a lot of people making that same observation is that the world is changing. The world is waking up. There were some interesting things that have happened over the past several years. Some of them wonderful, some of them terrible. To be perfectly honest with you, I think they're all wonderful, and how we see the world is how we see the world. What labels that we put on it is up to us. But no, but I am absolutely convinced of a handful of things. Number one, that no, that this life isn't what it appears to be.
Mm,
Number two, that it's likely a school, for each of us to experience a number of different things. Okay. Number three, four, whatever, wherever we're at on that.
mhm,
Our emotions are not what they appear to be. I am 100% convinced that our emotions is nothing more than our spirit simply moving from place to place, experiencing the world, saying, I wonder what it's like to be angry. I wonder what it's like to be despairing. I wonder what it's like to be happy. I wonder what it's like to be any of these things. And no, once we understand the very nature of emotion itself, that every
mm,
negative emotion is dispersive, chaotic, and destructive energy that is moving away from us. And it's useful in a fight. It's useful if we need to hide, run away, or scream for help, but it's really unpleasant. And so the question that you have to ask anybody is, are you experiencing negative emotion? Yes or no? Fear, anger, hatred, sadness, anxiety, upset, any of the rest of the stuff? Of course, everybody. Is there anybody on this podcast that has not experienced negative emotion? Denene,
Mm.
have you experienced negative emotion?
Yes, and you know what I want to highlight? The speech therapist in me is going to geek out for a second, but you just hit a key word, experience.
Experience, right?
Experience, because when we're talking about emotion or energy in motion, it's meant to move. There's movement that should be a part of that process. And experiences are fleeting, right? Experience
Right.
can bring movement. But what a lot of people do, they will claim an emotion with their I am presence. I am angry. I am sad. And they will
Right.
own it as who they are instead of what they are
Becomes
experiencing.
right. It becomes their identity.
So I switch the language. I will start using language such as I'm experiencing anger or I'm
Right.
experiencing joy, whatever it is, because I'm owning it as just an experience, not who I am inherently at my core.
Exactly. And our words have power
Mm-hmm.
because those words imply emotion. Behind emotion is emotional energy, and behind emotional energy is you. Okay.
Yeah.
And so when we change that narrative, and when we change how the definition, when we change the identity, when we change the emotional energy behind that language, everything changes. One of the things that I have learned is that emotion is the primary and universal language of the human family. There's not a single one of us that hasn't seen a baby cry when they're born. Well, who taught the baby how to cry, for crying out loud? Who taught the baby how to cry? Nobody taught that baby how to cry. There's an automatic program that runs inside that kid that no that says no, I'm afraid, because that's really what's happening. I mean, just seconds ago he was in his mother's belly. He could hear her heartbeat, he could hear her breathing, he could hear her bowel gas, for crying out loud. And then somebody squeezed the crap out of his head. They shine a bright light in his face, and he's cold and he's wet, and he can't hear his mom farting anymore. And all of a sudden, I'm afraid. So what does he do? He cries. Well,
Mm-hmm.
what is the cry? What is he signifying? He's expressing the fact that I'm afraid and I need help. It's a cry for help. And nobody taught that kid how to do that. Nobody taught you how to be angry. Nobody taught you how to be anxious. Nobody taught you how to be frustrated or sad or any of the rest of these things. And yet, every single one of us is experiencing all of these negative emotions. Well, the question that we have to ask is, if you're experiencing negative emotions and you don't want to feel negative emotions and they're uncomfortable and you don't like it, why are you experiencing negative emotions?
Mm.
Because you didn't choose it. And the answer is, there's an automatic program that's running inside of every single one of us. It's survival based. It has served humanity well for millennia. It is a primitive response. Today, people like this lady right here, right there, is teaching you how to wake up and be the most powerful part of who you are, because the most powerful part of who we are is not negative emotion. It's just survival, primitive, survivalistic stuff. Using positive emotions, where we turn that energy around. The word that she used was acceptance. Acceptance is the first, easiest, and the primary step that we use to turn emotional energy around and make it go inside. Positive emotion is concentrated, it is creative, and it is organized emotional energy. That's that's the definition of healthy tissue. When we look at tissue under a
Yeah.
microscope, healthy tissue is concentrated. The cells are small, they're organized. You can see all the different structures, and they're creating, they're expanding, they're growing at it under control. And the very definition of cancer, when we look at it under a microscope, is dispersive, chaotic, and destructive. Dispersive is metastatic disease. It's breaking off and going other places. It's destroying everything around it, and the mitotic figures under a microscope are going crazy all over the place. Okay, it's not a big stretch to understand from the things that she's teaching you here, that the physical reality, the physical body, is a reflection of non-physical the emotional energy, the non-physical part of us is simply reflected in our physical body. It's that freaking simple. Okay. But no, but we
Yeah.
don't want to recognize, especially in medicine, we don't want to recognize that there's something else controlling.
Mm.
The only thing that's here is just what we can see and what we can feel and what we can measure, and no, and completely untrue. Completely. Would you
Yeah.
agree?
Yes. And
Of
that's actually how
course.
natural alchemy came to be, because we can engage in these natural alchemical processes. We're designed to do this by human design. So that's how natural
Right.
alchemy came to be.
Yeah, that's not. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you anymore. That no, that so no, learning to take control of that is the fullest expression of who we are as human beings. In 1902, flying machines were a miracle. Okay. In 1903, it became the natural expression of and an understanding of physics on how air moves over a curved wing and creates lift. It's not a miracle anymore. People having miraculous recovery from fibromyalgia or a million other physical diseases is not a miracle, guys. All it is simply understanding the most real parts of who we are,
Yeah.
and and then working with it in the way that that it was intended. It is the most real part of us. So, Danny, if somebody wants to work with you at the Natural Alchemist, how do they get a hold of you?
So I do have a website, so thenaturalalchemy.com, and they can reach out to me. They can book a call with me. I do host free intuitive breakthrough sessions. So if they want to, again, see what I'm all about, see if we're a right fit, if they want to work one-on-one, or they do have the option of joining the circle. It's super affordable. It's $27 a month. You get 2 live calls with
Well,
me, coaching calls, and we have an app, which is honestly my favorite thing that we do have. So there's a whole meditation portal in there. There's monthly workbooks. There's master classes. There's a lot of different things that they have access to within that, and a live community chat where we can all stay in touch and people can personally ask me questions that they have, and I can get back to them in real time.
it's fantastic. Who's your ideal client? Who is the person that needs to be talking to you, Denene?
So, anyone who is really looking to ignite their intuition, work on energy management, anyone who is run down, experiencing nervous system dysregulation, who wants to really tap in and not isolate in one certain area, if they want an integrative approach to really hit that mind, body, spirit connection. So, we're treating and working on the wholeness, not just one isolated area. So, we dive into it all and what could be most supportive for them on their journey.
Do you work exclusively with women or do you work with men as well?
So I do work with men too. I actually really enjoy working with the men that I work with. And they're also a part of my membership too. So the membership is for men and women. It's called The Circle. And again, we meet twice a month. We have our live calls and some other exciting, things coming up, retreats, so many different aspects that we have to that. But yeah, I do work with men as well. So I do get primarily women, but some men are starting to really wake up to this fact, especially in regards to emotions, because men have been so programmed to demonize their emotions, to shut them off, not to have them. And women have been programmed that we're just too emotional and chaotic and too sensitive. So really bridging those gaps between the masculine and feminine in that regard, and how we can be supportive in that.
I couldn't agree with you anymore. If you were going to talk to a guy, if you were going to talk to me and say, "Hey, no, this is why you should be in my program," what would you tell a dude to say, "This is why you should be in my program"?
Because when you can tap into your emotional landscape, that is when you experience true strength. True
Well
strength.
said.
That's what it is.
Unbelievably well said. I'm stunned that you got it. Mark Twain said, "No, I'm sorry I wrote you such a long letter. If I had more time, I would have written you a shorter one." And you just in one sentence nailed it. Good for you, sister. I am so
Thank
you
you.
you just became my new best friend. This is so neat. So no, listen, I promised everybody we'd try and keep these podcast sessions short. I'm gonna we're gonna cut this off. Denene, you'll be back. No, I absolutely love the conversation. You are so well spoken, young lady.
Thank you.
My goodness, no, but
Thank you.
not a surprise. One of my speech language colleagues here. That's why we speak the same language. So no, I appreciate it. Denene Giudetti, no, the naturalalchemy.com. Is that where they find you?
Yes.
The naturalalchemy.com. We'll be talking again someday soon, but take a picture. This girl's coming back. We've got more to talk about.
It's a
But for
pleasure. I'll come back anytime.
I love it. No, so very good. We're going to wrap things up this week. And my name's Dr. Tim Teel. I am the Doc of Unlock. That's going to wrap things up for the Unlock a Life You Love podcast for this week. We'll see you next time.